there's a concept, Japanese concept means 8 million spiritual beings. The number of shrines and the temples is actually 3 times more than the number of convenience store. We are so surrounded by spiritual things, but because it was so the part of our fabric of life, we just basically don't notice it. When you see that, yes, the hybrid of Hello Kitty Buddha, it's funny and it makes you smile, and that's what it's all about.
Hey there, and thank you for tuning in. We're excited to bring you another great conversation today. If you like the show and want to support us, please hit the subscribe button so we can keep bringing you great content week after week. And if you're feeling extra generous, give this video a like and share your thoughts and comments down below. Thank you so much. And now, let's get into it. Welcome to Unpacking Japan. I'm Toby, and today I have the pleasure to welcome Hiroko Yoda. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
You're an author. You've written multiple books on Japanese pop culture, and you are releasing, or you have released by the time this episode is out, your latest book, 8 Million Ways to Happiness, which we will talk about quite a bit throughout this podcast, as well as the others you've written, because you are quite the expert on Japanese spirituality and a lot of aspects of Shinto religion and more. Super happy to have you and to get into those topics. And maybe we start at a little bit with your background, because usually I ask what brings our guests to Japan, but you were obviously born here. However, when you were relatively young, you went to the United States.
Wow. So, okay. I don't know where to start, but I think because you started out with my books that I published, and also I will publish, I'd like to just talk about the books first. So, well, I co-authored with my husband, Matt Alt. We published Yokai Attack, Ninja Attack, and the Yurei, the Ghost, the Yurei Attack, the trilogy of books. And the reasons on why we published those books was that I have been always interested in Japanese culture, history, and traditions. And so, we published the Yokai Attack in 2008. And by 2008, almost everything went abroad, exported abroad. Sushi, Pokemon, game software, cars. But the concept of yokai wasn't known much abroad. And ever since I was a little girl, I really liked spooky stuff, including yokai. And yokai is fun. And then also yokai is huge part of Japanese culture, traditions, folklore. And so because of that, I wanted to share with the people abroad. And also I wanted to see, the Japanese people and the non-Japanese people talk about something that I loved. And that is why we published. And then, so it was matter of course to publish the Ninja and the Yurei, because those two are a big part of the Japanese culture, history. So, so because of that, it was a matter of course to write about kami. Kami is a spiritual being in Japanese. But the problem is, it's a spirituality. It's a huge subject. And then also I knew that the Japanese spirituality is basically the foundation of our culture. So I needed a time, many years. So I'm very happy and excited, and also kind of scared to see my culmination of everything, which is my new book, 8 Million Ways to Happiness.
Yokai, ninja, yurei, and now kami, a lot of Japanese spirituality, which you mentioned you were interested already for a long time. Where did this interest come from for all these kind of aspects of Japanese culture?
So, the yokai itself, it's basically just like anybody else, anime.
Okay.
Gegege no Kitaro, and it's based on the manga, based on the Shigeru Mizuki. So that's yokai. But in terms of Japanese culture and history and especially spirituality, was from the year that 1 year experience that I spent in America as an exchange student. Because, well, at the age of 17, I went to high school in Indiana. And then the organization was called Youthful Understanding, YFU. They sent a lot of students to America, and I was one of them. And right before we left for America, the organization held the orientation, and to prepare for going abroad and spend as an exchange student. And well, I don't really remember much except the one thing that they gave us a sheet of paper and a lot of questions, the questions that Americans probably ask. And I don't remember any of it because it's a long time ago, except the one thing that the Americans probably would ask you, which religion do you believe in? And then that the answer that they provided us was, I was Buddhist. And that really shocked us. Shocked us, everyone, the students and family. Not necessarily just because it's Buddhism. It was just because we never talk about it in the public, and then also we don't identify ourselves with the religion. And it also, it's like, what religion? I mean, we're talking about, because the spirituality was such a part of the fabric of our life. The reason that why I can talk about this a lot right now, because I spent a lot of research. But back in time, I had no idea. But because your culture, it's just like air. Unless you have something to compare with, you would notice. So they gave me that something that I can compare with. And like, I guess I am Japanese. Once I leave my country, everything is different. I cannot take everything granted. And so I think that was the beginning to my journey, I guess, to learn my own culture and my identity and just background.
So a seminar to prepare you to go overseas with one question, basically putting you in a position where you had to reflect on your own spirituality, kind of kickstarted your interest. You talk about it a little bit in your book, 8 Million Ways to Happiness, where when you actually arrive in the United States in that exchange year, you ended up in a family that was quite religious. And they kind of took you as guest of the family, part of their rituals for Christmas and going to church and so on. And you kind of reflect on this a little bit. Did this immediately basically continue that questioning for you about what it means and where this comes from, and reflecting on your own kind of spirituality growing up in Japan?
Okay, so before I answer all the questions, I'd like to give you a big picture, because I am going to refer back a lot. That there's a concept, Japanese concept, it's called yaoyorozu no kami. And yaoyorozu means 8 million, and the kami means spiritual beings. So yaoyorozu no kami means 8 million spiritual beings. And the 8 million here doesn't mean exact number. It just simply means many, infinite. So, well, the Japanese people, in old times, the Japanese people thought that everything surrounding them had a spirit. The sun, the moon, the ground, the trees, and the rocks, and even the words they spoke. And, well, that worldview was pretty much, it's pretty much active today. Not necessarily mean that the Japanese, the people worship them, but we sense it, and it's a worldview. And then also that term is from Shinto, but it's not limited to Shinto. It's bigger than that. It's a worldview. Because there's another thing I'd like to say. I'd like to
Sure.
talk about is that there so many. I mean, there's infinite number of spiritual beings in the kami. So there are even kami of plague, kami of poverty, and a kami of toothache. And, but Japanese people don't venerate those bad things. But it's a reminder for us that no matter how much you wish those bad things don't exist, but they do. So it reminds us we have to deal with those things. So in the concept of Yaoyorozu no Kami, the 8 million spiritual beings, it's that all those spiritual beings, kami, are equal. There's no hierarchy. There's equal in existence.
Interesting.
So I can explain, really nicely right now. But I was only 17 and I couldn't speak English, close to none. I learned English, but it's just grammar.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was first time to realize, I have culture, which is Japanese culture. So of course I was just basically confused. And so I couldn't explain. Of course I couldn't explain. I just could not even answer. When the people asked me, so Hiroko, what do you believe in? Are you religious, or do you believe in religion? If you do, what religion? Which religion? Kind of thing. And I just could not explain. I was basically froze. I froze. It just mainly just because it's English ability, but a lot of people interpreted it as that just I didn't have identity, because in the West, its religion is identity. In Japan, it's not identity. So, but so I guess people felt so sorry for me. So, but looking back, I really appreciate the whole thing, because everything is just learning experience for me, and it was just part of me, and it's just basically a gentle nudge to walk on that path, basically just learning and researching, and here I am.
So this gentle nudge that you got from this introspection of your year abroad, what did it lead you to do when you came back? Because I imagine suddenly you're back in Japan after this experience. You were in the Midwest, I think Indiana, in the United States. Suddenly you're back in Japan and you've had people talk to you or ask you about religion for a year, and now you're here and suddenly you have the temples and the shrines, and I imagine you start looking at them differently and like, oh, what does it mean actually? Why is there a temple here? What's the story behind?
Well, at the time, it just didn't work that way because I was busy learning English. So it's not, I didn't go to the United States in Indiana to learn a religion. It was just a part of it. And then I was basically, very busy to making friends. So after I came back from America to Japan, and then I went back to the school again, it wasn't religion who gave me the second culture shock. It was actually individualism.
Oh,
individualism, because here in Japan, when you meet a person, Japanese person, you introduce yourself with your family name. Family name is part of your group, but in America, you introduce yourself with first name. That's individual, and so it's just right there. That was actually a huge shock to me. I mean, I of course, once again, I was just too young. I was so young. But so this concept that I learned was very vague, but I felt that I was Americanized.
So that 1 year kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. And then also there's a term that the nails sticking out and hammered down.
Get hammered down, yeah.
Especially during the the late 80s, when I was in high school, it was pretty much known, and then also once again, it's a group identity. You know, was a, I don't want to call it standard, but I don't know what's the word I'm looking for here. But anyway, the group identity. So I was okay to identify myself with my family name, with my the school name, and then I was okay with that. But then I went to America. People asked me a lot of questions and said, "Oh, Hiroko, what do you think, or what do you like, or what you don't like?" And then when I say yes or no, it doesn't matter. And then immediately they ask, "Oh, why?"
Mm.
And well, we didn't do that much, in general speaking, or especially when I was young. So I guess because I was Americanized and I started speaking up more, and then so I finished all my college education in Japan, and I got full-time job, good job, and at the company. It's a well-known company. But then I hit that sexism.
Ah.
The Japan it's very flexible in spirituality, but it's very rigid in society. In the West, it's opposite. It's very rigid in religion, but flexible in society. So, and then also I went to the all girls junior high school, and women college. That was the very first time to encounter that the sexism. I took let's say all the new employees took the English test as a communication tool, and I scored highest among 25 new employees, but it didn't mean anything because I was a female, and the salary was there was a gap between in the male and female. Even though we do have the same background, or maybe you have higher educations, but still the gender, the being female it's basically that brings you down. And of course I didn't like it.
No, I can imagine.
Yeah. So yes, so that's basically why I went to America and spent almost the 20s to pursuing higher education. And the funny thing is, I was okay not to come back to Japan. But then there's a lot of things and the good things that happened in America, and then I finally had the opportunity to found a company, and which is Alt Japan, in the localization company, and the clients are all Japanese. So I moved back to Tokyo, and also brought my husband
Matt, who was on the
Matt,
podcast as well.
right?
Yeah.
So I brought him, and then we started doing a business. That was different because I was independent, and then here I am.
So that whole kind of experience coming back from the United States, for you, the spirituality part of it was not like immediately impactful. It's something that kind of came later, but it was more this basically finding yourself and your place within society and how to make it fit. And it didn't really work on the first try. So you went back to the United States, and when you had finally you met your husband and started your own company, decided to come together back here and establish yourself like that. So then you suddenly have your own company and you're working in localization. So you're playing around a lot with language as well. You localize a lot of video games, right? And still today, I feel like you write a lot about language and how it's being used in both. What was that experience for you to kind of establish that company and kind of translate all of these games, a lot of which have elements of spirituality too that are being translated into?
Yeah. So my background is international peace and conflict resolution. That is a master degrees that I got in America. So that is always back of my mind. So that the localization translations is part of it, because it's a bridge between the two different culture, and so and then also the language closely ties to, yes, the culture. And then if you don't translate accurately, it always creates misunderstandings. And then I think, that is a localizer's job to promote. In my mind, it's just basically, it's like understanding each other is basically, the path to peace. So yes, and then the game, yes, the game. So we have done a lot of localization of games because we've been we've been running company for more than 25 years.
Yeah.
And then the first job was translation of game. That was totally analog. It happened in America. The Matt got a job, and that was before we founded the company. Anyway, he got the job translating the game from Japanese to English. And well, at that time, it was common sense almost that the translation is a one-person job, one-person gig. Just basically, if you translate Japanese to English, well, the English it's just English native. The person who has English as a native, language, would work on the project.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah, I know. It's totally different, right? So that's why he got the job. But it's just huge. And then also, it was like 25 years ago. So it's analog. He printed out in paper and it showed it to me. And then there's a lot of game codes in there. And then in Hiroko, there's just too much. Would you like to work with me? I was like, okay, sure, why not? And so we went to the pizza place and we started translating, right? And then he wrote it with using a pen.
Translating a whole game with pen and paper. Wow.
And then started typing with just a lot of game codes. Anyway, and it worked so well. And then we both realized that it's a bridge, between the two different languages, totally different culture. So it totally makes sense that working translation in team. At the time, that even the word localization didn't exist. So when we started doing the running a business, we had to explain what localization meant. Start from that, and then we have to explain why it's better to work in team to do the localization and instead of one person. And there's a lot of the hurdles, but it was good. And in so when we started the running a business, it just there were not many the translators specialists, especially to know the English, know Japanese well, and then also the games well. It's very rare. It's like you could count just with your two hands.
Just a few companies around, yeah.
And so so it was a fun time, but it's a lot of difficult time. And so I have been I know you gave me the questions in there that I guess I can say that hardest, the most challenging part during that period was that people constantly asked me why Japanese person involved in English translation. And then today it's a common thing, but back in time it was just rebel almost. Yes.
You mentioned that translating is kind of this bridge between language and cultures, and some words are difficult to translate, and some words are not translated at all and just used as such in the other language.
Yes.
And I think recently you wrote a couple of articles about this. In Japan, there's a lot of wasei-eigo, the English words that are being used in Japanese language with a meaning that slightly changes, or the other way around. Japanese words that get used in English language with also the meaning that changes. Like wrote the piece about ikigai.
Right.
What are your thoughts on these kind of words that lose their meaning or have a meaning change over time, or a different meaning in a different culture?
Yeah, so I think for the localization, I describe myself right now as a cultural localizer. So that means it includes translation, localization, and also interpretation, and then so anyway, of course, in order to be the cultural localizer, of course you have to know the languages, but also I think it's important, equally, maybe more, to know when not to translate. Well, so my upcoming book, The 8 Million Ways to Happiness, contained a lot of Japanese words because it's my culture, it's a Japanese culture, and kami, for example, that I know the most common translation for kami is God. But even if you use small g and god and multiple gods, but immediately skewed toward Judeo-Christian worldview, which is absolutely different from Japanese worldview. So in my book was very challenging. It's very challenging. Because I wrote it in English, and it might my target audience is everyone, including people who know nothing about Japan. So make sure that I define. Every time I brought the Japanese words, Japanese concept, I explain and to go back to that goes to the basics and then explain, define, and then use that Japanese words. And I think that's just very important because you can't translate it just from A to B.
So you have to provide context and choose when not to translate.
Yes.
That's not easy.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
But but yokai, it's a great example. That before we published the yokai attack in 2008, the yokai was translated as monster, monster, ghost, ghoul, or even demon. And demon, it automatically skewered to the Christian worldview, and which is absolutely different. So yokai are yokai, and then now today just yokai became
Yokai.
yes, the term.
So for people that are not familiar with yokai, what exactly are they? If you don't really translate them the way they sometimes have been, how would you explain a yokai?
Yokai?
Yeah.
Yokai are the folkloric characteristics. The characters from the folklore. And they are characterization of unknown phenomena or unexplainable things. So, like for example, there's a old man called Azuki Arai, the bean washing man. Well, he is a character, and he often portrayed as old man, have a bucket, have a container with azuki beans, and just simply washing,
Just washing.
washing on the river, on the mountain. He's a characterization of phenomenon that basically the sound echoes when you walk in the mountains, and of course the landscape is so complex. So even though you see the river over there, but you hear the sound from the back of the your backside, and like that causes disorientation. And so a lot of folklore says that if you hear the sound of river, even though you don't see the river, you lose orientation, sense of balance, and then you basically fall, kind of thing. And then when it happens, and the people basically smile, it's like, you encountered Azuki Arai. So it's a characterization of phenomena.
And I imagine, especially back in the day where fewer things than today could be explained, that kind of
Yes.
gave a lot of space for people to make up stories
Mm-hmm.
about what could be the reason.
Right.
You wrote that book in 2008 or published it in 2008. I think you
2008,
mentioned
yes.
earlier. So on your journey into researching and studying Japanese spirituality, why did you decide to start with yokai? And what kind of really interested you in those stories of folklore that you wanted to share, which you mentioned directly with an audience overseas and really introduce them to Japanese folklore?
Yeah, I think that to answer for that is it's just the same, I think it's just similar to what I said before, that I wanted to just share because it's just shame not to, basically. It's shame not to. It's a fun stuff. And then also I realized that as you know, characters are everywhere in Japan. Everywhere in Japan. And it's just many years ago, say early, like 2003 or 4 or something like that. And we were already in Japan. And then, so all of a sudden he started laughing. And then, he was holding the manual TV. We just bought the TV and the manual TV, and he just started laughing. It's a manual of TV. So it's like, why he's so laughing, right? So I asked him, it's like, what's going on? He said that there's a lot of drawings of TV, and basically do not do, don't do this, don't do that kind of thing. Just say, do not pour the water the TV.
Obviously.
And do not use try not to fix TV all yourself. Anyway, with the drawing of the crying TV, getting wet, crying TV, and the having kind of just poking in the screwdriver kind of thing, and it's just getting hurt thing. To me, it's so common thing. It's not even, it's just like air to me. But Matt was laughing just because, Hiroko, TV is an object. They don't cry. They don't, they don't cry. And then, so what's going on with this? And then also, it's a very Japan thing. After he said that to me, and then we travel abroad, like I said, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and of course in Canada and any other countries. And then, yeah, that's right. I don't see any objects with eyes or nose and a mouth. Okay, where's that coming from? And then that was basically the yokai was just basically the window to dive into the roots of our tradition, our worldview. But it was only a part of it because I realized that much later. It's a spiritual worldview.
What yokai do you like?
What yokai do I like? I like mouth/woman. Kuchisake onna.
Okay.
Yes. She appeared in late 1970s, and she terrorized elementary school kids in a fun way. And I was in the midst of the craziness, and every day we discussed and how we could survive, quote unquote. Yeah, see right there, it's like a survival guide. So we just discussed and every day. We exchanged the informations, and it's like I heard, you throw the candies, and you can run, or just maybe you should answer. Before I say that, maybe explain what the mouth/one is. Also, it's a woman. It's a woman wearing a white mask, and she comes up to you and asks, "Am I pretty?" And if you answer, yes, and she removes her mask, and she shows her her mouth, and then do I look pretty? Even still, and then of course you get stunned. But then she just basically took the knife and just slashed her mouth. And it's okay. So if you say no, well, she would do, she would kill you anyway. It's pretty brutal, but it's a character. It was just a character of something scary and fun at the same time, and I had a great time with it, and so it's my favorite.
So
My
you
favorite.
mentioned that when you were in school with your friends, you were talking about a character like this and like how to avoid her and how to answer correctly so that you can get away from her. But you didn't realize at the time that this was like interconnected with all these like other elements of Japanese spirituality. So you wrote that book, Yokai Attack, and for you, you said it was like this entry point that you started digging and
Yes.
digging. What did you start realizing when you started researching and you saw that all these stories were somehow connected, that there was something beyond the character? The character had an origin story that kind of brought you more closer to a bigger part of Japanese culture.
So my book, The 8 Million Happiness. It's a mixture of my memoir and Japanese culture. It's my personal journey of re-engaging with Japanese spiritual traditions after my mother's passing. She passed away in 2008, and so it's a of course, it was just very difficult the time at the very first. Just it was like a darkest period of my time, my life, and a lot of people, that told me my condolences, which is very nice, but it was really hurting me because my brain, of course, accepted my mother passed away, but my heart is just rejecting it. And so I wanted to have a big pause, big pause. And I talk a lot about that in my book. But so every day I started walking in my neighborhood park. And of course, in the first, I couldn't do anything. I just put my shoes and it got out and it just came back right away and cried. But the more the more I walked, I started doing something that I couldn't do the day before, which is looking up, and started paying attention surroundings, and then it was fall, and I noticed that the colors started changing beautifully, and then I saw the blue sky or clouds, and the birds are flying, the ants are crawling on the ground, and then I realized that I thought I was darkest grief, but I realized that I thought I was alone, but I wasn't really alone. In fact, I was surrounded by a lot of lives, and if I open my eyes and heart, I could communicate. That's spirituality, and then so I basically that was that realization was the beginning of my healing process, and then also that was the beginning of the deep dive of spirituality, because the Japanese spirituality is hiding in plain sight, and it never even evangelical, never pushy, but it's just there. And so I realized that even though I was walking in the park and then just surrounding myself in the nature, but I was touching Japanese culture. And so after I published Yokai, Ninja, and Yurei the Ghost, that it was a matter of course to write about kami. A lot of people asked us, hey, Hiroko and Matt, and why don't you write about kami? Well, I mean, we cannot do kami attack. And also the trilogy, the trilogy of books, the books has manga-like drawings. As I said before, the Yaoyorozu no Kami, 8 million spiritual beings, infinite number of kami, we cannot do that. And then also, we're talking about humanity here, a big subject. So so that's just basically there's a lot of elements that do it, but it's just I think that was just really the beginning.
So 2008, the big
I think
turning
so.
point.
Yes.
And you spent some time writing those other books before you started dedicating time to this more personal story of 8 Million Ways to Happiness. And on this journey to spirituality, and in this book at the beginning, you talk about basically the big three, so to say, Shinto, Buddhism,
Yes.
and the shugendo.
Mhm.
For people that are interested in understanding a little bit more spirituality in Japan, or that maybe approach it from a perspective of like, what religion are the Japanese, which is a question that I see come up a lot.
Yes.
And the answers are complex. How do you explain those three? How are they connected to each other? Is there a way to understand this in a, let's say, quote unquote, simple way? Or is it something that needs a lot of time?
Okay. You threw me a lot of questions. But okay. So first, there are three major belief systems in Japan: the Shinto, Buddhism, and shugendo. And those, but the boundaries of those belief systems very blurred. I can give you an example. I just went to Kamakura.
Mm-hmm.
Kamakura is one of the major tourist spots. And there was a shopping street. And the shopping street, it starts with Shinto Torii Gate. The Torii Gate is 2 pillars and 2 bars on the top. That the Torii Gate is, there's a minor, the varieties, like say some Torii Gates are red color, painted color, or made of different materials like stones or the woods.
Mm-hmm.
But the shape is pretty much the same. That's Torii Gate. Anyway, that shopping street starts with Shinto Torii Gate. And in that, the street leads to Shinto Shrine. And then, yeah, so, so I walked through the Torii Gates, and then, yeah, there's so many stores. Normal stores. Flower shop, restaurants, cafe, souvenir shop, toy stores. And I found at the toy store, there is a hybrid of, there's an illustration of hybrid of Hello Kitty and Buddha, which is a symbolized Buddhism. Okay?
Hello Kitty Buddha.
So, yes. So here's the thing. So you can find the souvenir, the toy keychain on the street leads to the Shinto shrine, but you can find the Buddhism stuff. Because the Kamakura is known for 2 holy spots, also major tourist spots. One is the Tsurugaoka Hachimangu Shinto shrine,
Mm-hmm.
and another one is Kotokuin. It's known for giant Buddha. So that is why. And so yes, so you can find the temples and the shrines built on the side by side, or that you can find the Shinto shrines inside of the Buddhist territory, property, or playfulness. That even the boundaries, the pray and the play are intertwined in the Japanese spirituality. In Hello Kitty Buddha, and it's example. And then on the shopping street leads it to the Shinto shrine. So it's very, very blurred.
Shinto and Buddhism are often talked about, shugendo a little bit less. Where does this one fit in? Where does it? Okay,
the shugendo is a hybrid of Shinto and the Buddhism and other belief system, and centering around mountain worship. And so the practitioners of shugendo are called the yamabushi,
Mm-hmm.
and it literally means the surrender of mountains. So that's, but the thing is that the number of the shrines and the temples, the Shinto shrines and the Buddhist and the Shugendo temples is actually 3 times more than the number of convenience store.
Wow.
so, and then the majority, as you know, you live in Japan, you know how ubiquitous the convenience stores are.
Yes.
It's just everywhere.
Facing each other, next to each other.
Exactly. But there's 3 times more. And many of them, most of them are open to public. And anybody can go in as long as they have a respectful manner. So we are so surrounded by the spiritual things, but because it was so the part of our fabric of life, we just basically don't noticing it. and then Japanese people, including myself, it just cannot explain in our spirituality, and so that is why I decided to write the book in English, because there are so many books about Japan in English, but many of them are prescriptive, and then also none of them are not the full range of explain how affect the Japanese spirituality affects on Japanese culture, and then also it's where my book is. I think it is rare that it's written written by native Japanese and written in English, and then targeting for everyone. It was challenging, let me tell you.
I can imagine.
But it was worth it.
You said that it's all around us, but to the point that we don't necessarily notice it, especially for Japanese people. They kind of grow up with this, and these kind of elements of Buddhism and Shinto, shugendo as well, are just there and part of daily life. When you started looking into this, what are some of those elements that suddenly you started noticing? You're like, oh, well, this has been there all along, and it actually has this meaning behind it.
Okay, I found one spiritual thing here in this studio. Yeah, you know what it is? It's Dharma.
Yes, our logo, our little Dharma.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Because the Dharma, the origin is actually a Buddhist monk. He lived a long time ago. He brought the monk brought the early stage of Buddhism philosophy, the philosophy of Buddhism from from India to China. The Japanese people, in old times, heard his legend, the story about the monk. And the monk meditated for 9 years. And 9 years is a long time to say.
It is a long time. Yeah.
So because of that, his arms and legs got rotten. He lost limb, and so the Japanese heard that legend, like, never give up. So they made roly-poly toy. Dharma. When you push, always comes back. It all comes back. It become a lucky charm. That today, Dharma is everywhere. It's toy, roly-poly toy, or paper mache, good luck, the good luck object, or even your coffee mug.
Little logo.
Super kawaii, the character. It's right there. This is right there. It's just Japanese spirituality is hiding in a plain sight.
When it is in such plain sight, sometimes you mentioned people kind of forget that it has a spiritual meaning behind it. Did you feel something like that as well when you refer back to that shopping street and you see a Hello Kitty with the Buddha outfit? There's like, okay, is this supposed to refer to the whole kind of context of Buddhist religion and get people to read the teachings or get interested in a religion? Or is this just a toy and kind of making a kind of lighthearted thing of religion?
I think it depends on individual. I mean, it could be, like you said, it could be just a window to pursue the knowledge. I mean, but to the vast of the Japanese people, the majority of Japanese people, in nutshell, the Japanese spirituality is it's about cultivating positivity in our life, expressing the gratitude for what we have, and then also nourishing the sense of belongingness to nature, because kami belong to nature. And not just nature, but it's the connections, basically. So, so when you see that, yes, the hybrid of Hello Kitty Buddha, it's funny and it makes you smile, and that's what it's all about. The sparkling little, the sparking is a little joy, and that is all about.
Writing that book, you said, was difficult. When did you decide to actually start writing it? I imagine the idea must have been floating around for a while before you started sitting down at your desk and putting it to paper.
Could you repeat?
Writing the book.
Writing
when did
this
you
book?
actually decide to start writing it?
The 8 million West Happiness. Well, it was 5 years ago. 5 years ago. I thought it was about the time I wanted to write, and the writing process. I started with writing a proposal, and that took me 1 year and 8 months.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, and then I sold the proposal with it helped my agent, and it took another 2 years to write the book, and that's that. So writing itself, the whole process, it took 5 years, but my research was just long time. So it's just basically the 2008. It was it was just like basically the re-identifying myself journey. And so it was that's 17 years ago. So I put everything. The book, it's a culmination of everything.
It's a journey you mentioned, not only spiritual, but also physical. I think to write this book and to do your research, you went to different areas of Japan to talk with priests, to talk with people involved. What are some of the most memorable for you encounters that you've had that helped you rediscover yourself?
Okay, the memorable the place and rediscover myself, it's kind of separate things. So that in order the answer for the latter one, just basically just each place is just give me a different ideas and learning things. So I really cannot pinpoint that. But the most memorable the place, and it's hard to pick. But if I have to pick one place, I would say the top of the Nachi waterfall. There's a waterfall in Wakayama Prefecture. I wrote that in my book too. The 133 meters high. It was very tall, and there's a Shinto shrine at the foot of the waterfall.
Nachi Taisha.
Yes, the venerating the waterfall. Well, so anybody can go in and show the respect, and then they see the waterfall at the foot of the waterfall. Anyway, the first time I went there many years ago, I saw the shimenawa, the woven rope, the top of the waterfall. The shimenawa rope is it's like an icon, a Shinto icon that it is telling people that that object is worthy to respect. Well, so that the shrine is venerating a waterfall, so it does make sense that there's a shimenawa, the woven rope, side by side on the top of the waterfall. But it's the top of the waterfall, very edge. So I thought, it's like, how on earth?
How did they do it?
How did they do that? Right? After I sold my proposal, a couple years ago, I talked about that with my friend. And unfortunately, my friend had a connection to the Nachi Taisha, the Nachi Grand Shrine, and there is actually the ritual, the annual ritual to change the shimenawa rope from old one to new one, and it isn't open to public, but they made exception for me to see the ritual on the top of the waterfall. And that was phenomenal.
So how do they do it?
Oh, they just stood there and then with their hands and then change. I wrote that in the book.
Wow.
So it's just this, yeah. So that's the most memorable thing. Yeah,
That's quite a unique experience, I imagine.
Yes. So in my book, I'm lending my eyes and ears for the readers to experience, to go through my journey, and then learn and see how the Japanese lay person, incorporates spirituality into daily life without any commitment or just only because it's to make our life happy or to heal or to simply just expressing gratitude in a way large and small.
For people who may read your book and kind of get interested also maybe from hearing this conversation into Japanese spirituality, where would you recommend them if they are in Japan or if they're coming to Japan? Where would you recommend them to go? What places are important to you that kind of give a good sense of elements of Japanese spirituality?
Well, I mean, the easy answer for that is of course just go to the Shinto shrines and the Buddhist and shugendo the temples. But it's not, our spirituality is not limited to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's in fact, to us, those are the spirituality is prime and providing us a spiritual tools, just the tools. I go to the shrines and temples a lot, just because it gives it just allow myself to have a moment. Everybody's busy, and it's nice to go to have the brief a moment. I mean, like say the Shinto shrine, it's very brief. I just the clap, the bow twice,
Mm-hmm.
clap twice, and the play just a little, and then bow once, and so it's a really split second type of thing, but it helps to kind of stop, time out, to rebalance myself, or I just go in because there's so many. I just check that out, kind of thing. But those are just the tools. Just they provide us the area to do that. So in that means that you don't need shrines or temples to do that. It's just take a walk. You don't have to come to Japan. If you have if there are trees, if you find a the nice patch of grass, or something, or just feeling a fresh breeze, that's spirituality too. You can do anywhere. So that's another reason why I wrote my book in English, because through my journey I found that I'm Japanese, so I only can talk about Japanese things. But I learned that there are so many things in our spirituality can be shared with anyone, with any background, so that is based. That is why I just wanted to bring a different perspectives, because it's really helpful, especially in the hard times, difficult times.
It kind of all started when you were 17, and you had this kind of a seminar to prepare you to go to the United States for the first time, and someone asked you or told you, if they ask you what's your religion, you should answer you're Buddhist. If someone asks you this question again, now that you speak English and you've studied spirituality extensively, how would you answer that question?
I would answer, I am Japanese. That's what I would answer. It's a culture. It's our worldview. So that's how I would answer. And so after I realized all kind of the stuff that I told you so far, I just basically started reflecting my life. What was the beginning of my spirituality? Even though I didn't, realize it's just, oh, spiritual. It's not like that, And it was actually that I wrote that in my book too. My ad hoc playing grave at the age of 6. I didn't have memories about my great grandparents because they passed away before I was born, and also that when I was very little. So so I didn't have any experience hanging out with grandparents. But when I went to kindergarten, and especially after the holidays, all the kids started talking. Saying, we went to the beach with, good grandma, my grandpa, and gave me a toy kind of thing, and just talk. I mean, a lot of good stuff. I couldn't participate in the conversation because I didn't have any. So what I did was, I used a shoebox, my father's shoebox, and created a grave. And I wrote my great grandma and grandpa's grave. The reasons why I did that just because in Japan, going to the family graves it's part of the tradition, and it clean up, the graves and gives offering, incense, flowers, sweets, sake, whatever the past loved ones love. So, of course, my parents and relatives grabbed me and my young, my baby sister, and then went to my, my great grandparents' grave, time to time. And it was a fun time because we did picnic after that, under the cherry trees, cherry blossoms. When we went to springtime, we saw beautiful cherry blossoms, and so I wasn't sad because my grandparents passed away. It wasn't nothing to do with death, but I was sad because I didn't have grandparents to play with. So because of the experience that I had fun time with the graveyard, so I created my own altar at house with the shoebox that tried to contact to my grandparents, the invisibles. That's spirituality. Even though I was, of course, it's 6 years old, so nothing to do with spirituality. I just wanted to play with the grandparents, and that was the best thing I could do. And I think that was the beginning.
That was the beginning, and the journey still continues.
Yes,
for people that are
absolutely
interested in this and many more stories that you share, they can find them in your book, 8 Million Ways to Happiness. Hiroko, we talked about quite a lot of things. Is there anything else that you wanted to kind of get into? Anything you wanted to kind of conclude this conversation with to give people a good understanding of Japanese spirituality and maybe their entry point into learning more about it?
Yeah, well, so as everybody knows, that there's an explosion of interest in Japanese pop culture, and then but I noticed recently that I think that interest got shifted from just simple consuming products to learning Japanese culture, and well, Matt and I had a talk this summer at Anime NYC, and I talked about the Japanese spirituality. You can find the Japanese spirituality in your favorite manga and anime, and that was the title. And about close to 400 people showed up, and there was a huge line to ask me questions, and that really fascinated me. And then because yes, it's a Japanese spirituality it's a key to understanding everything about Japanese culture. I mean, cleanness, craftsmanship, the food, the words we speak, mannerism, and pop culture, manga and anime and game. So, I'm so grateful to see that many people are interested in in my culture and in the foundations, and so if I can help to explain, I'd like to do as much as I can. And then my book, 8 Million Ways to Happiness, is only a starter.
Only a starter, so
Yes,
maybe more books to come.
Yes, I'm thinking yes.
Hiroko, thank you so much for
Thank you
coming
very
and
much.
sharing your story and perspectives. We'll
you
put
very
all the
much.
links in the description so people can take a look at the book, maybe check out your newsletter as well,
Yes.
and more.
Yes.
It was a pleasure having you and getting a bit of an understanding of a very complex, sometimes also sensitive and personal topic that is spirituality, religion. And I'm sure we could probably talk a lot more about all the different aspects of it, but we'd need a lot more time.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for listening and watching. This was Unpacking Japan, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future conversations. And we'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this episode, here are a couple more that we think you'll enjoy. Thanks again for your support, and we'll see you next time.